Welcome to Area 2071, a research-driven metaverse podcast.
Hey everyone, it's George from Area 2071. Area 2071 is a project of Blockchain DXB. In this podcast series of Area 2071, we focus on Metaverse, everything related to Metaverse and NFT. This podcast primarily focuses on education, information, research and news about Metaverse across the globe. We will discuss some latest news, technological innovation and adoption of Metaverse. We will also discuss how cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology merges with Metaverse. Finally, we also focus on Dubai, UAE and Middle East in the world of Metaverse. So, let's kick this thing off.
Hello fellow citizens from Metaverse, it's George from Blockchain DXB. And today is the 8th of July 2022. And to be honest, the market does look a little bit better than its previous weeks. And in Dubai, it's a long weekend over here, a 4-day weekend off. So really hope you're safe and sound and do have a brilliant weekend ahead. In today's episode of Metaverse Everything, we will be digging deep into McKinsey's article. They've released an article called as The Reality and the Myth. They have published some really interesting survey. The size of the survey is really small. They also have a podcast, a 3-part podcast called as At the Edge Podcast. The podcast is great, but in the first podcast, they've introduced a woke culture. If there were valid reasons for introducing it, then it makes sense. So we're going to be talking about At the Edge Podcast. Next, we're also going to be looking at the importance of the photo quality in Metaverse. That is the pixels and the nits. And Mark Zuckerberg, in his video with MetaQuest, did talk about the importance of nits, so we'll be exploring that. And there is an event which is taking place in Dubai towards the end of the month, which talks about the quality of NFTs and how audio can be linked to NFTs also. So we'll be exploring that in today's episode. I will also share some macro level news on ways to do research on Metaverse and share some resources to learn about Metaverse. Now this is a macro level concept. The same thing can be applied for Bitcoin, open blockchain and cryptocurrencies, because I think we are living in a world where having a lot of information is not important, but getting the information from the first source is. So welcome everyone, it's 8 and you're in Dubai and you're listening to Metaverse Everything, where we focus solely on Metaverse. We also cover top 5 Metaverse news from around the world and top 5 Metaverse news from Dubai. And Metaverse Everything is a research-driven podcast focusing on education, informational content, purely about Metaverse and its impact in the economy. And remember, Monday to Thursdays, we also have Crypto and Coffee at 8, where we cover top news and information pertaining to Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and Metaverse. And how the series of episodes on the Crypto and Coffee at 8 works is, we usually cover top news and information pertaining to the price of cryptocurrencies, some major breaking news, occasionally short and sweet news as well, news that have an impact in the cryptocurrency world. The other two information is related to Dubai, UAE and Middle East in the world of Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi and Metaverse. So let's kickstart today's episode. And I like to ask this question before we start the episode. Will the Metaverse economy be bigger than the real world economy? Now again, the time frame of this is you're looking at probably a couple of decades from now. By the year, let's say 2040 or 2050, do you think the Metaverse economy will be bigger than the real world economy? McKinsey has released an article called as The Reality and the Myth of Metaverse. To be honest, the survey size is ridiculously small. They've only looked at 1,000 people. Needless to say, that is a ridiculously small number. And the age group of people that they have surveyed is between 13 to 70. I really am not sure the ideal age group, particularly for surveying about Metaverse. And the survey is only for America. The audience is more an advocates and early adopters of Metaverse. So it does link or have preference only towards one particular sector. And they're probing the reality and myths in the Metaverse, also called as the Internet of the Future. So from that survey, what they have found out is that no one really knows what Metaverse is. And to be honest, it's really hard to get a proper definition of metaverse. And the survey also says that the metaverse is a fad. Now, personally, I totally disagree to this. The metaverse is not a fad. Metaverse is here to stay. But we are looking at a different time horizon. If you were to ask this question, probably by 2030, the answer would be completely different. Metaverse is definitely here to stay. The next thing is the survey showed that the metaverse is only for gamers. Definitely not true. Now, currently, the metaverse looks like it's only for gamers. If you look at protocols such as Roblox, it's designed only for gamers, or even decentralized, a sandbox. Apart from real estate, gamers are wholly into metaverse. When you have the whole 360 degrees environment and feel in PlayStation 4, metaverse does make a good use case for gamers. But is this about to change in the next couple of years? Definitely yes. The next thing they talk about is the metaverse is geared to Generation Z. I have a mixed reaction to this, and this again goes back to Bitcoin. If you ask the number of people, who are the people who are heavily invested in Bitcoin? And if your answer is millennial, to be honest, the answer may be wrong. Because if you look at the guys who are above the age of 45, they are the ones who actually have a lot of Bitcoin. So metaverse might probably be in the same area. I really am not sure because I do not have the numbers. But it would be really interesting if the survey size is much better. And needless to say, metaverse is for the entire world. So the survey size needs to be absolutely massive. The next thing that they talk about is you can't make money in the metaverse. Again, this is definitely not true. And again, guys, remember, this is a survey size of 1,000 people. This is not what McKinsey is saying, but this is what the audience is saying. So McKinsey might have a completely different view, maybe even an opposite view of the results of the survey. So we're just discussing what the survey was all about. The topic it talks about is you can't make money in the metaverse. Personally, I in Blockchain DXB think that there will be a new industry which will be formed, something which we aren't even aware about it right now. If you look at social media, think of social media before the invention of smartphones. Before smartphone was created, we probably didn't even know that there would be a thing called a social media. The same thing will be applicable in the metaverse as well. There would be something called as blue ocean, an area which we still haven't identified, and massive areas of opportunities do actually still exist that hasn't even been found yet. The next they discuss is the speed of technology will set the pace for adoption. Now I do agree to this because depending on how the technology evolves, we might get more users on board. That was pretty much more about what they talked about in the survey, and the survey discussed the reality and myths about the metaverse. They also have 3-part series called as At the Edge. The first episode talks about the definition of metaverse. The first episode sounded great, but towards the end, they ended it with a woke ideology for no apparent reason at all. They talked about LGBTQ, they talk about gay rights, which is perfectly fine. I'm 100% in support of LGBTQ rights, gay rights, or whatever rights. But to link it for no reason, it doesn't make any sense at all. They could have just completely avoided in the podcast. The second episode is where they talked about the promise and the peril of metaverse. This is a brilliant podcast. I would definitely recommend you guys to go out and listen to it. It is with Matthew Ball. Now, Matthew Ball is the OG of metaverse. Mark Zuckerberg interviewed Matthew Ball. So it was the other way around. Rather than interviewing Mark Zuckerberg was the guy who was interviewing Matthew Ball to identify more options about what metaverse is. So definitely worth listening to the podcast. They talk about the details of metaverse, what the current state is, and what the future is. And the final episode talks about the innovative and practical applications of the metaverse. So there are quite a lot of interesting things. So based on the 3 episodes, I'm just going to share some of the things that I particularly found out informative. In the first episode, they talked about how NFTs in the near future will be used in the metaverse, and only NFT holders may be able to make reservations at physical restaurants and in the metaverse. And they also discussed about how you could literally buy physical things in the metaverse. And in one of the podcasts, they also talked about Bill Gates talked about most of your office meetings will be held in Metaverse. Bill Gates did actually say that in a CNBC article, and he does envision that office meetings will be held in the Metaverse in as little as maybe 2 to 3 years down the line. And they also talked about how one can attend school remotely. Now imagine in case of leave of absence or if students are sick, the ability to attend class and still get a feeling of being in the classroom. That is essentially what Metaverse would be. They also talked about how the Metaverse economy could actually be bigger than the real economy if we try to revisit this question probably by 2040 or 2050. It'd be really, really interesting. And in one of the podcasts, they also talked about BMW who are building cars in the Metaverse. And the idea is that they can spend less amount of money building these cars in the Metaverse, get a detailed, accurate description, and then use it in the physical world. And in the final episode, they also talked about helicopter training. By doing it in the Metaverse, you could save the time from 18 weeks to 10 weeks. That 8 weeks, that is a lot. So Metaverse is definitely saving a lot of time. It is saving a lot of cost as well for a company. And the quality, needless to say, is as good as being realistic. So definitely a lot of potential in the Metaverse. Finally, they also talked about how augmented reality can be used for shopping. They talked about an example from IKEA. What you can do is, let's say, take an image from IKEA from the website. Using your augmented reality, you could literally place it into your room and then you would get a realistic idea if it does actually match in the room settings. So definitely a great podcast. The next thing, guys, what I'd like to talk about is the importance and the quality of photos in the Metaverse. And this is something which Mark Zuckerberg also talked about in his YouTube video with MetaQuest. I really liked what he talked about is that the image quality needs to be better, but at the same time, as and when our eye moves, the part that you're not looking at, the quality needs to dim down. So what I'm trying to say is, let's say if you have an image at 8K quality and if you're looking at the center of the image, the moment your eye moves from the center towards the right, the left part of the image needs to go down. Now, in case if it doesn't go down or doesn't get blur, that's when we get a feeling of dizziness. How headsets are going to be designed, that is one of the biggest challenges. So they talked about how the importance of quality is so critical and how you view the image is so critical. And in the near future, there are also going to be projects that the photos are going to be AI enabled, which means depending on the situation, the photo can understand your emotions and then display the photo. Again, this is just a thought. Imagine having that photo, an AI enabled photo in the Metaverse. What that would essentially mean is, let's say if I am in a happy mood, if I look at that image, that would portray something different to, let's say, if I'm in an angry mood, that image will be shown completely different. Is that something which would be possible? It's just an idea. And imagine having that in the Metaverse and using your augmented reality, your virtual reality headset, and then just playing around with that. That would be absolutely brilliant. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the importance of sound in photos and pictures. Now, is it possible that the photos can actually have sound also? In Dubai, there is a company called Coders HQ. They are having an event where they are going to be talking about the importance of language, of audio and visuals in NFTs. This event is completely free, of course. It is taking place towards the end of the month. And when I discuss the top 5 news in Dubai, I'll be talking about that too. Imagine photos that can actually display some kind of sound. That would be really cool and interesting concept too, right? Finally, I'd like to talk about holographic. I'm pretty much sure everyone knows what an holographic image is. Now imagine these holographic images are combined with AI capabilities and has the ability of sound. Now you're talking about the real use case of the Metaverse. Definitely a really niche sector to be focusing on. So if you are an artist and focusing on just doing your digital artwork, one thing what you may want to start incorporating is the element of sound. What that means is you look at the sound and you hear some kind of music, some kind of message, or some kind of sound. Can you do that using artificial intelligence? Definitely think so. The next part I'd like to share is some resources, some learnings regarding Metaverse. This is just at a macro level concept. Where can you get information regarding Metaverse? Remember, guys, we are in this world where having a lot of information is not important. Getting information from the first sources. Believe me, regarding Metaverse, when I look at LinkedIn posts, 9 out of 10 posts are absolutely garbage. They have absolutely no idea of what the Metaverse is. They have no thorough understanding of what Bitcoin is, what Web 3.0 is. Personally, I am not a fan of Web 3.0. I think it is just a marketing gimmick so that they get a lot of funds from the investors. But whenever you're looking at information, make sure you get the information from the first source, not from mainstream media. So what I'm essentially saying is not to look at information that is portrayed by CNBC, Reuters, or even Forbes. Instead, what we need to do is we need to get information from the first source. Where can we get information from the first source? That is a company's official website or press release. So let's say if you see an article published in Forbes.com, for example, that Decentraland is willing to sell 20% of its stake. We are not supposed to take that at face value. We need to look at the company's official website, then check who has actually gone ahead and published that report. And you would be surprised, 90% of the time, the information is completely wrong. So you need to look at the official social media channels, not the media, even Elon Musk's news. What I would recommend is follow Elon Musk. That way you get information from first source using his Twitter account. The problem arises is mainstream media like CNBC, CNN, they would add their own commentary and they would publicize an information which is not true. Again, going back from personal experience, 99% of the time the information is completely altered, cherry-picked, or completely fake news. So you can look at information directly from first source by, let's say, looking at Twitter accounts. Medium is a brilliant source. One thing which I'm really liking regarding cryptocurrency is that CoinShares has been publishing a weekly report and they publish it using Medium. What I would want you guys to do is go through CoinShares Medium blog page, read through the article, and then compare it with what mainstream media is saying. You would be surprised the information is 80 to 90% completely different. You can also go to Substacks to get information directly from the authors. Now, Telegram is a mixture because there's a lot of scams in Telegrams. Again, the key message is to get information from first source. Regarding Metaverse, I would urge you guys to go ahead and listen to a lot of podcasts. Mackenzie's podcast that I talked about at the gates is a brilliant podcast to get information from first source. Listen to a lot of interviews and research that are released on podcasts. Now, with reference to Bitcoin in particular, in the past I've released a list of podcasts that I tend to listen to quite often. At the top of my head, I would recommend, listen to Peter McCormack from What Bitcoin Did, Pomp podcast by Anthony Pompliano, Unchained podcast by Laura Shin, Let's Talk Bitcoin, or now called as Speaking of Bitcoin by Andreas Antonopoulos and Jonathan Mayhem and 2 other co-hosts. Bankless is also a brilliant podcast that talks everything about Ethereum and blockchain protocols. So getting information directly from podcasts is also a brilliant source. Needless to say, if you're listening to podcasts, you need to change the speed at which you're listening to. So you can listen to it at maybe 2x the speed or 3x the speed. You do that not to save time, but to improve your concentration level. So in podcasts, I would recommend you guys to go and listen to interviews, listen to research. There are also quite a lot of events lately. What they do is they have a recorded session of these events and put it on podcast. Now, personally for me, I do listen to 2 to 3 hours of podcast every day, and that is at 3x the speed. So at 3x the speed, I'm listening to 3 hours worth of podcast. That literally equates to around 9 hours of listening every day. So when I'm at the gym, I only listen to podcasts and not listen to music. The other source of information, what I would recommend is reading through journals and articles. Again, you don't have to listen to journals and articles from mainstream media, but why from schools and universities? Because these are authenticated and these are literature. So read through journals and articles from schools and universities, articles by industry professionals. The problem arises is, let's say if there is an author from an industry or an industry professional or a university who writes an article, CNBC picks up on that article. Depending if it fits their political agenda or not, they might either support the article or they may demote the article. I would recommend not reading through the CNBC article. Instead, read through the article from the first source and then make up your own mind. You could also attend seminars and conferences. A lot of the seminars and conferences are completely free of cost. As a matter of fact, today, when I'm discussing top 5 news from Dubai, the UAE government has a plethora of events regarding AI and blockchain and NFTs, which I will be discussing. Personally, I'm attending 5 of these events in Dubai, and all of these 5 events are completely free of cost. If you are a listener from Dubai or UAE, definitely listen to the later part of the episode, and I'll be sharing the links where you can attend it completely free of cost as well. Next, guys, moving on to top 5 news of the week from around the world. The first one is Yahoo. Yahoo is launching a Metaverse events for Hong Kong residents who are under restrictions. So Yahoo has announced its intentions to launch a series of Metaverse projects in Hong Kong, and they are doing it in decentralized, and they're using the Mana token. So in case if you are someone from Hong Kong and are affected by the restrictions, maybe this is a platform where you can get into. The second news is a Metaverse dog. An Israel startup called Digital Dogs, they are having a Metaverse dog called as Breeds, and essentially it is puppies for a 3D world of virtual reality. Really, I'm not sure what to make of it. Maybe it is a good idea, and personally, I love pets, but I don't have pets, so I'm not the right person to talk about it. But what do you guys think if you have pets? Would you like to have a Metaverse dog? Now, before making any judgment, I would recommend you guys to go ahead and do research about it. Because when I initially read about it, I thought this was some kind of joke, but when I actually read it, it does make a lot of sense. Again, only a person who actually has a pet dog might probably give a better assessment of this. The next news is about South Korea. Let's make drinking in the Metaverse great again. So South Korea's largest convenience store chain called CU is getting booze into the meta world, and they're getting involved in the digital world by introducing alcohol brands on the Korean JJAANN Metaverse. JJAANN is spelled as JJAANN Metaverse. It's essentially going to be the world's first social drinking metaverse. So most likely it would be a metaverse platforms where people from all around the world get together and have a drink. Needless to say, the drink will be at your own physical place, not in the metaverse. The next news is from Manchester. So Levin Hospitality, which is from Manchester, is building a visually fantastical virtual hotel in the metaverse. Now, I've lived in Manchester for a few years, and to be honest, I think it's the most happiest city in the world. So having a hospitality arena, a building where people from all around the world could just hang out, seems like a brilliant use case of the metaverse. Finally, the fifth news is about Pringles. Pringles is hiring for the metaverse for an NPC position. So the snack manufacturer Pringle is definitely dwelling into the metaverse market. They are offering gamers a chance to win $25,000 to act as an NPC, that is non-player character in Dream Sim World 2. So if you are into NPC or non-player character and want to get into metaverse, so definitely look out for Pringles. You just might be the winner of $25,000. Finally, guys, top 5 news of the week from Dubai. The first news that I'd like to talk about is Crypto Fest 2022, which I talked about in yesterday's episode on the 7th of July. The Crypto Fest is having an event between 19th to the 20th of October, and they're going to be talking about a plethora of things, metaverse being included, and they're going to be having a festival of blockchains, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, Web 3.0, DeFi, mining, digital asset trading, and gamify projects. And in yesterday's podcast, I talked about how they have 2 days of event. And personally, I'm quite interested in attending only the first day of the event. So look up Crypto Fest 2022. Second news, guys, and this is the event that I was talking about. It is UAE's AI Summer Camp, that is Artificial Intelligence Summer Camp. This is organized by the UAE government. This is, if not one of the best events for kids and for general audiences as well. The UAE Artificial Intelligence Camp is a gathering of trainings, workshops, webinars, and talks about artificial intelligence, metaverse programming, and a lot more. If you are in Dubai, they have a couple of events which are taking place at the Emirates Tower and a couple of events which are taking place in Souk Medina. A lot of the events are completely virtual. Now, if you have a kid who's aged 7 to 15, I would definitely recommend you guys to sign them up for it, because there are loads of events where they're going to be talking about how AI is going to be affecting their life. And guys, the events are completely free of cost. I have registered for 5 events. The first event takes place on the 13th of July at 10 a.m. Gulf Standard Time. So again, guys, if you are in Dubai, on the 13th of July, there is an event taking place called as AI for Everyone, and it is at 10 a.m. in the morning. On the 16th of July, there is another event taking place called as Metaverse for Brands and Creators. So this is definitely a must if you are into Metaverse. And they have few more events that talks about blockchain utility for real life purposes. And the other session that I talked about earlier when I was talking about the importance of photo quality in the Metaverse, they have an event called as the language of audio and visual in the NFT. Now, they do not have much information, but it's definitely an event that would be extremely keen to attend to. So UAE Artificial Intelligence Summer Camp, definitely check it out. The link for the website is in my LinkedIn profile. So go to my LinkedIn profile and read through the article for the 8th of July. The next news is about a company that is seeking funding, and it's called as Meets Meta. So Dubai-based software developer Meets Portal Company is currently in discussion with investors for Series A funding, and they want to develop its Meets Meta platform. I could not get much information about it, but let's say if you are a developer or if you are an investor and want to find out more information, drop me an email and I'll definitely be more than happy to share some more details. The next news is from Abu Dhabi, and this is Etihad Airways. Etihad Airways is definitely in the race for unveiling NFT collection. So Abu Dhabi's Etihad Airways unveils its first NFT collection, and they are doing that in collaboration with Polygon, which is a second layer solution that solves scalability for Ethereum. So what Etihad Airways will do is they're going to be releasing NFTs, and the proceeds from the collection of the sale of NFTs will be used to purchase sustainable aviation fuel in 2022. So definitely a brilliant use case. So look up Etihad Airways, and to be honest, guys, if you go through the website, which is mentioned in my link by the way, there is a possibility for you to receive the NFT completely for free of cost. I have this feeling these NFTs can be traded in the secondary market at a humongous price, because the whole idea is the sale of the proceeds will be used to purchase sustainable aviation fuel. So the idea behind this is absolutely brilliant. The fifth and final news for today is about Royex Technology. They had an event a few weeks ago called as Experience the Metaverse. If you go through the YouTube channel, it actually shows you what is it that participants actually went through. There were a total of 45 attendees which were given a presentation about the Metaverse. And I also talked to the CEO. His name is Mr. Roy, and he is writing a book on the Metaverse too. So pretty soon, I hope I'm going to get him in my podcast, so I'm in a position to go ahead and discuss some more details. I think they're focusing more on building Metaverse so that everyday users can truly identify the potentials of Metaverse. So that's all for today, guys, on Metaverse Everything, and today is the 8th of July. I really hope that you have a fantastic weekend ahead. It's a long 4-day weekend ahead in Dubai. Make sure that you're safe and have an absolutely great weekend ahead. And if you guys have any feedback or suggestions, please drop me an email to info@area2071.com or info@blockchaindxb.com. And remember guys, Monday to Thursdays, 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., we have Crypto and Coffee at 8, where we cover top news and information pertaining to Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and Metaverse. This is followed by 2 news and information related to Dubai, UAE, and Middle East in the world of Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and Metaverse. Thanks so much for listening to Metaverse Everything, and have a brilliant weekend ahead. Bye-bye.